So, have you ever been hanging out with friends or been to a garden center and they start talking about garden terms and you're kind of looking around going, I don't know what that means, but oh my gosh, I don't want to ask? Well, don't worry. We're going to go over some garden terms today so we can get you well informed. So, I just want to say, don't feel silly if you don't know any of these terms. I went through the Master Gardener program and I used to teach classes, and I would always have at least one person in each class who would raise their hand and say, I have a dumb question. And I'd always say, you know what, there are no such thing as dumb questions because all of the knowledge that I have or that maybe your friends have, they didn't know at one time either. So they either had to ask or do their own research. So we're going to get you well informed today. And if there's any terms in here that you already know, I am going to put timestamps down in the description so that you can skip to maybe some that you don't know. So, an annual. This is a plant that completes its entire lifespan in just 1 year during a growing season. From seed, it germinates, then it grows foliage, puts on flowers that eventually fade into seed heads that produce the seeds for the next generation. And then the plant dies. It won't ever regrow, and so you have to save those seeds and plant them the next year to get more flowers. And these that I'm showing you are just examples of annuals in my area, and just know it can vary depending on your location. A biennial is a plant that completes its lifespan in 2 years. It goes from seed. The first year it grows foliage and a good root base, and then the next growing season it puts on blooms that then turn into seed pods, and then the plant dies. Now, a perennial is a plant that's lifespan is typically 3 years, although they can live significantly longer. But on a perennial, the foliage dies back during the first winter months, but will regrow from dormant roots the next season. And although they do take longer to mature and in many cases have shorter blooming times than annuals, they're still loved by gardeners since they don't have to be replanted every year and they offer a lot of beauty in your landscape. Germination is when that seed that you took and put it down into your potting medium, you gave it the proper amount of moisture, the proper amount of warmth for whatever that seed needed. The seed softens, it splits open, and the root, which is down here at this end, starts to develop to go down into the soilless mix. And then the tip, where you can see the green right there on my finger, that is the actual plant that is going to come up and produce those cotyledons so that the plant can start growing its first set of true leaves. So I'm going to stick that back down in my potting mix there. Get him all tucked back in and let him continue to grow. So cotyledons is what we're going to talk about next, and what they aren't actually true leaves, but they are the seed leaves, and they're part of the embryo of the seed. And what they do is once the seed germinates, that's what will first appear, and that is what will feed and promote the growth of the plant for the first true set of leaves to appear. So you can see on this sunflower here, these are the cotyledons, and these are the set of true leaves right here. And once these are no longer needed, they will turn yellow and fall off. So once the set of true leaves comes out and they start to photosynthesize, then what happens is the cotyledons will fall off. And most of the time they turn yellow or wither and fall off. It doesn't hurt anything once you have a set of true leaves to snip them off. So that's what I'm going to be doing on these sunflowers before I put them out in the field. So I won't bore you with this whole process, but I am just going to get these snipped here. And this one, can you see how funny? Both of them came out on the one side instead of one on each side, as they normally do. But we'll get these clipped off and then I'll just kind of show you how much better they look once they're all removed. And as I'm snipping here, one thing I did want to mention is you can tell that the yellowing of the cotyledons are not showing signs of stress or unhealthiness in the sunflower, and the reason being is that these top leaves here, the true leaves, are very healthy and green. Now if this plant was stressed and the true leaves were yellow, that would be a good indicator. Next is a seedling. Now a seedling is basically just a young plant that is grown from seed. And it's the first stage of that plant's life after germination, where it pushes up through the soil and the cotyledons appear. And then eventually the first very small true leaves will appear. And this is its stage as it's developing into a mature plant. Often seedlings are transplanted when they have their first set of true leaves, but a lot of nurseries and garden centers, and me included in growing, I consider seedlings just still very small plants until they're big enough to get into bigger pots. So now we're going to talk about root bound. Root bound is when the roots of a plant have really outgrown their space needs for the container that they're in. And these were just in these little 4-packs here. And these are bigger than some of the trays that I start in. But marigolds are very quick to produce roots. And I find they're one of my quicker ones to go root bound if I don't get them in the ground. Now these are pretty forgiving, and I can just tease the roots with my thumb like this and just kind of pull them apart, and you will break some of them. Again, this does not hurt the plant in any way, shape, or form. But what this does is when you either put it in a larger container or you put it into the ground, it encourages those roots to spread out. Whereas if you left them root bound and all snug and tight together, some may eventually reach out, but a lot of them will just continue to wind themselves around the plant. So this one will recover just fine. You can see how it kind of grew tall and leggy and put on a bloom early without getting super bushy in the pot. That is because it is root bound. If it had more room to spread out, it would have made a bigger plant first. But the great thing about marigolds, even though that's not what we're talking about in this video, is that marigolds root on the stem. So you can remove all of this leaf matter right here, plant it up to here, and this will put on roots, and then your plant will start bushing from this point out, and you can snip this bloom off, which I will do when I go to put this in the ground. I will snip this bloom off to encourage the roots to really spread out and grow bigger. So I want to show you a side-by-side comparison of a healthy root structure and a root structure. While it is still healthy, it is root bound, and if these don't get planted soon, it could stress the plant out and cause it to be stunted. So here again is what it looks like when it's root bound, and this one has a healthy root structure. So next up is bolting. And bolting is when a plant is either stressed or the weather is hotter than the plant generally likes to grow in. So if it's maybe a spring blooming flower or a spring blooming vegetable or herb, and it gets hot too quick, the plant panics and it sends up a seed stalk to produce seeds. And that's just kind of its survival mode. Now this is celery, and this is what it's supposed to do, but I honestly don't have any plants that are bolting to show you. Cilantro is a really good one that bolts really quickly, but it looks exactly like this. So instead of this leafing all out at the bottom, it has sent up this big thick stalk, and up here on the top you can see that it's starting to form seed heads, and this is going to seed. So if you ever have a plant that gets stressed by heat, by lack of water, pest damage, anything like that, and it starts to send up this thick stalk and putting on seeds before it's flowering or doing whatever else it's supposed to do, that is what bolting is. So deadheading. Deadheading is simply the act of taking spent or blooms that are done blooming, that are about ready to go to seed, and snipping them off. And the reason that you do this is many plants, if you don't do this, then it focuses more of its energy on producing seeds than it does more blooms. So to get it to continue to bloom throughout the whole growing season, you just come in here. Now see, this is a dead bloom that's going to try to go to seed. And I just cut the stalk way down here. And on this plant, it'll send up new bushy stems. This one kind of has an odd shape to it. It has all these blooms coming off the side, and then it had this main one on the center. This is going to be kind of hard to cut off because it doesn't really have its own stem. But I'm just going to snip it off like that so that it doesn't focus any energy on putting seeds out in that spot. So that's all there is to deadheading. It's basically just the act of snipping off spent flower blooms so they don't go to seed, and the plant focuses its energy on giving you more glorious blooms throughout the summer. So hopefully you found these gardening terms helpful. I am going to be doing another video on another set of gardening terms, so watch for that one. It'll be called Volume 2. And if you enjoy this kind of content, gardening, baking, canning, all of that fun stuff, that's what we do here on this channel. We would love to have you subscribe. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.